Hi, my name is Brian Takumi, and I am the VP of Product Creative here at Oakley. I'm here to talk to you about Origins of the Oakley brand, Chapter 1 in our series. The first question we always get asked is, where does the Oakley name come from? And back in the day, Oakley was actually named after Jim's English setter, Annie Oakley, and he used it to start Oakley the business. The next thing is, where does Oakley come from as a brand? Back in 1975, Oakley started as a company selling motorcycle parts. And so one of the things he started to look at was, when you start to think about a motorcycle and one of the most important things on it, he looked at the grips. Most of the grips he was selling were basically a rubber sleeve that went on the handlebar. And considering how important they were, how do you actually make it better? And so one of the things he started to think about is, what could give you more grip than actually octopus tentacles? So that's where we developed the octopus pattern. So when your hand held on, it increased the traction and gave you more grip on there. One of the other things he wanted to do was, how do you make a grip fit the hand better? So while your hand isn't always this perfect round shape, he started to think about, how do you make a shape that's more anatomical to fit? And then he put these grooves on the front where you could hold your fingers and increase traction. And really that was the idea of, how do you improve and make something better? And he really pushed to do this because when he tried to pitch companies with it, they basically came back and said, shut up and sell the parts. You're not here to make product. So that's what really drove him to make Oakley the brand. So much so that eventually he got a patent for that grip and actually made it so ownable that no one could copy what he was doing, from the octopus pattern to the shape. And this set down the path of, how does Oakley make product that's ownable to us? And how are we doing things that others are afraid to do and others can't do? So with that, he started to think more about, how do I brand Oakley? Because when you think about the end of a grip, there isn't a lot of room to have a logo there, and you don't get a lot of visibility for the brand. So he started to do things like the Oakley 3, where from a distance you could clearly tell this was a different grip, and eventually winding up with something as unique as the Oakley O-Wing grip. One of the other things that Jim started to think about in marketing the brand was, how do you get more visibility outside of just grips and having this small logo on the handlebar? And that led him to start to develop the Oakley goggle and started to think about screen printing the logo on there. So from a distance, you could certainly see the branding much more than you could on a grip. But in trying to create some identity and ownability for the goggle also, he started to think about the design of it. How do you make a goggle very distinct that from a distance, you would know that it was something different than what anyone else was making? And so when you think about the general silhouette of what a goggle is, while you had the outside contour, he actually thought about the inside here too, to basically create a shape within a shape that had never been done before. One of the other things he started to do that no one else was doing, he not only branded the Oakley on the inside of the frame here, he put a texture on the inside of the frame to cut down on glare that was reflected back into the lens. So even as something as simple as what he was doing with the goggle back then as a marketing tool, he was infusing technology and taking it to a whole different level of making it performance wrapped in art. One of the other big things about Oakley is we've always had a relationship with the athletes. Not only were they guys we sponsored, they were a source of driving the innovation. They were ambassadors of the brand and not just endorsers of it. And so one of the things he developed was the factory pilot program. And this was not only to represent the elite guys that were out there, but also to show how they were connected with the brand. Some of the ads we would do, like our R&D department works weekends, and when you looked at it, it's made up of all our BMX racers at the time. It wasn't made up of a bunch of guys in suits or anything like that. They were actually riders. They were actually part of the brand. And what you can see here is riders such as John Atwood actually screen printing some of the goggle straps on. And this really embodied the idea of the factory pilot and build a long-term relationship with them, not just a short-term sponsorship. This gives you a glance into the humble beginnings of Oakley, and we're going to go along a journey to see how we became what we are today.